Tonight, in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television, a fatal road accident along the Douala-Teko Highway has claimed the lives of 14 people, leaving several others seriously injured. And also in this newscast, pupils of government primary school Zakok, that is in the far north region of the country, are without classes for lessons after 5 structures of the said institution were swept away by heavy inundations. And also in this newscast, Malians resident in the country's economic capital Douala say that they want national reconciliation. Good evening to you viewers. Welcome to join us in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television. We begin right here with a very sad story. At least 14 persons are confirmed dead and several others seriously injured following a fatal road accident that occurred in Bekoko, that is on the outskirts of Douala today. The incident, according to witnesses, resulted from a head-on collision between a truck transporting sand and a 19-seater bus that left Boya early today. The truck driver crushed the public transport bus after a poorly overtaking another vehicle. Elements of the firefighting brigade ferried some of the deceased as well as the injured victims to the Sebek Hospital, the Lakantini Hospital here in the city of Douala, and also to the Boya Regional Hospital. We shall be coming back to that in a subsequent newscast. Meantime, a one-day-old baby was abandoned in front of a compound in Damokong Street, that is in Bamenda, northwest region of Cameroon, by an unidentified mother. The baby, whose health condition, according to medical officials, is stable, is being taken care of by the personnel of a local clinic. Let's have the details of that report with Fon Kenneth.
This one-day-old baby was discovered wrapped in this cloth and placed by the roadside at Ndamokong Street quarters in Bamenda by an unidentified mother. Meanwhile, the management of the PMF hospital are taking good care of the baby as she is fine and in a good health condition.
Thank God, in a very good condition, as indicated there by Fon Kenneth. In another story, pupils of Cameroon or government primary school Zakok in the far north region of the country, as we announced in the headlines, now receive lessons in an open air after water swept away 5 classrooms of the said institution. They are now left with a single dilapidated hall for classes. Let's have the details of that report once again with for Hansen Chanji.
This is the remains of government primary school Zokok, 43 years after its creation in 1970, located 2 kilometers away from Diamari in the far north region. The school is now a shadow of itself. The pupils and teachers were welcomed back to school with inundation that swept 5 out of the 6 classrooms available. This is part of the walls that were affected by inundation. Attendance in this school was timid Monday. Out of 647 pupils, only 86 answered present. The school headmaster says it is due to the inundation that pupils could not cross the Mayo Kayau River to school. Classes are being held in the open air with only a roof and benches built under trees. The office of the headmaster is now movable. School authorities have called on the government to build new classrooms, recruit more teachers, buy benches, and above all, build a bridge over the river Mayo Kayau to enable movement from town.
Meantime, let's take a look at the dilapidated states of classrooms at the government primary school group 5, that is in Kongsamba in the Mongo division of Cameroon. Parents say the situation is making studies very uncomfortable for both teachers and students or pupils. Details with Pamela Ndukong.
It is only through this billboard that one can be informed of the presence of a government primary school group 5 at the Kongsamba neighborhood, which is in an advanced state of abandonment. Since its creation in 1961, no rehabilitation work has been done on the school. The walls of the building are pulling down and paints have been washed away. 4 of the classrooms which lost its roofs 10 years ago have been completely abandoned. In this government primary school, there is a great need of blackboards, benches and lanterns. There are 2 potholes on the floors, and the school now depends on temporary structures constructed by Parents Teachers Association, the PTA. With about 700 pupils, this academic year, many parents have pulled out their children due to the bad state of the school.
Continue with our back-to-school package. It was an effective kickoff of the 2013-2014 academic year in Bamenda Northwest region of the country, as about 80% of the students showed up in their various classes. Von Kenneth in the following report, however, tells us that the registration continues, or the registration exercise in schools continues to be a problem in most institutions where he visited, and that some teachers were actually absent. His report.
Like in other parts of the country, the 2013-2014 academic year started hitch-free, with pupils and students, both old and new, respecting the official opening day, September 2nd, 2013. A new school year that saw some institutions getting into full business, though most of the classes were with no teachers. Like one family, the regional delegate of secondary education and basic education in the Northwest region accompanied Northwest Governor Lele Lafrique Adolphe in the monitoring exercise to some government and private secondary and primary institutions in the Northwest region. Though a successful start in some institutions, at GTHS Alabuka, registration is ongoing with some hitches, as explained by the principal.
And then the second difficulty is that the children are not found in the classroom. They are instead found at the bursary where they queue up to pay fees. And so the campus looks a bit rowdy. It doesn't look like an environment for learning.
Meanwhile, at GTHS Bamenda, the principal told us their readiness.
Yeah, we are well prepared. We have bought all the necessary pedagogic materials for the year to meet.
GBHS Bingo, these Form 1 students were delighted to tell us their first experience, first day in a secondary school.
Learn in this school is that the school is a good school.
I learned that history is the study of important past events. This is my first day in this class, so I have experienced so many things.
For the principal of GBHS, Bello, the situation in that institution.
Von Kenneth there, ending the report from Bamenda Northwest region of Cameroon. And in Limbe, we are in the southwest region of the country. It was a timid turnout of students in classrooms on the day 1 of school resumption. Davison Maimo tells us that it was partly blamed on the registration exercise.
Christmas in the city of Limbe, from the government schools to the private and the private institution, it is certain that there is a timid turnout of pupils and students, even though classes, according to school administrators, has started. Mrs. Ayumpe Hadassa is the principal of Government High School Limbe.
During holiday, we numbered and outlined all the various classes, so it facilitated the movement to the various classes, and we brought the lower seat and Form 4 classes, which were far from the administrative block, closer to the administration for follow-up. So I think I'm impressed with the turnout.
Thank you very much. I am indeed a very happy principal, because for the first day, all the students of GBHS Mutengene have come in their numbers, and the teaching staff too have come in their numbers. And as you can see, classes have effectively started in GBHS Mutengene.
At this Lee private secondary school, the story is not different, as explained by the PA to the proprietor, Mr. Marvin.
We are still having admissions at this time. This Monday is really the peak of admissions. Parents are still coming in, to to register their children and also for new cases. So it is very impressive.
The pre-nursery, nursery and primary school sector witness a good number as compared to the secondary. Mr. Mo Joseph is a proprietor of one of the lay private primary schools in Limbe.
I am also very happy that the weather is so good that, in fact, the kids were in school today on time. The turnout was very encouraging.
Generally, education officials say the turnout in the first day is encouraging.
Meantime, there are indications that the bilingual students of the St. Michael College here in the economic capital Douala would not start classes anytime soon in Segon Bileng. The debate is over who to issue the authorization for bilingual students to continue their studies. Rosalie Etofler tells us more in the following report.
The regional coordinator of the bilingual system of education is blaming officials of St. Michel College, saying it was left on them to get close to her services and verify whether the bilingualism will continue to the second cycle.
Their offices expect that things will fall onto them. Actually, we sent out the text, the minister's text, to all the pilot schools in the littoral. If they did not have any information about the pilot classes or how the pilot classes will go on after that, they should have come to the delegation to find out these children have had the BPC option Bileng. What do they do now? I would have given them the text signed by the minister.
This Nuta Elizabeth revealed, however, that a text creating the continuation was just recently signed by the minister. In a phone correspondence, officials of Collège Saint-Michel wondered why the ministerial text was not gotten across to them. At the Bonaberry Government Bilingual School, the problem is rather Segon-say students who opted for sciences but are not involved in the bilingualism.
With bilingualism, but there's not a class, a seconde scientifique bilingual.
However, the students of Segon in the arts have since September 2nd resumed classes and are receiving lectures in both English and French.
Yes, Bonaberry. We are in Segon Bileng, and the particularity of that class is that we have so many subjects that anyone don't have. We have handicraft, literature, citizenship, sport and physical education, and so many others. But here we have our parents are proud of us because it's not like the other one. It's particularly.
In the littoral region, the government bilingual schools of Bonaberry, Makepe, St. Michel and Orchidea colleges were selected as pilot centers. But the recent ministerial text of Mbapes has created a similar exercise for Anglophone students. And the first bilingual GCE examination will be written come June 2014.
At least 92% of the population in Konsamba, that is in the Mongo division of the littoral region in Cameroon, have benefited from free vaccination against yellow fever. The exercise spearheaded by the senior divisional officer for Mongo seeks to fight against the disease, as Pamela Ndukong tells us in the following report.
Divisional delegates, mayors and military officials in the division were chosen by the SDO to be the first to be administered the vaccine. This vaccination against yellow fever, which was carried out in 13 health districts in Mwango, Kam and Sanaga Maritime Division, was intended to vaccinate at least 92% of the population against this illness, yellow fever. Within 6 days, the health personnel visited neighborhoods, markets and churches to raise awareness and get vaccinated. While launching the campaign in Konsamba, the SDO, Hona Thomas, encouraged the entire population to be vaccinated. He reveals that persons suffering from yellow fever cannot be easily distinguished from HIV patients. Only children below 9 months and pregnant ladies were excluded from taking this vaccine.
In news out of our national boundaries, Ibrahim Boubacar Keita has been sworn in as Mali's new president at the Supreme Court in the capital of Bamako. Mr. Keita, who took his oath of office this morning, won last month's run of elections. He is intended to restore morality after a coup and French-led military action against Islamist rebels in the northern part of the country. An opportunity for our reporters to here in the economic capital Douala to visit the Malian community here in the city, and they so far said that with the installation of a new president, Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, they expect him to ensure a national reconciliation, maintain peace and security amongst all Malians. They were speaking to our reporters, as I indicated today, few hours to the official inauguration of a new president. The Malians also said that Ibrahim Keita should respect his campaign promises of providing jobs to youths and also taking care of Malians out of the country. We remain in news out of Cameroon. Syrian Deputy Foreign Minister said Damascus would not give in to threats of the U.S.-led military strike against his country, even if a third world war is to occur. Meanwhile, the U.S. President Barack Obama, in his trip to Sweden, reminded international community to take punitive actions against Syria. Let's have the details of the report with the Dutch Welle TV.
A row to address MPs in the National Assembly Wednesday. Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius doing the same with the French Senate. Fabius insisting time is of the essence.
We have to succeed in moving the situation forward. Otherwise, if there are no sanctions, Bashar al-Assad will say, that's fine, I can continue as before. There was a massacre, and we hold Assad responsible. That is our business, and intervening will enable a political solution.
But while the socialist government is largely united, some MPs are worried by the haste. Centrists, Greens and Communists are demanding a vote, just like in the UK and in the US. The main opposition party laying out its conditions for support, conclusive proof from the UN's chemical weapons inspectors, as well as a legal framework from the UN Security Council.
What we say is that if there isn't a UN mandate, which could be the case, then it would make sense to have a vote.
Any military action will have to wait, though, for the green light from the US Congress, not expected to meet until next week. France's president insisting Tuesday any response would be taken in concert with its allies.
If the Congress's decision is not positive, then France would not act alone. But we would take our responsibility by supporting Syria's democratic opposition.
François Hollande does not constitutionally have to go to Parliament before taking military action, but recent polls show over 6 out of 10 French are opposed to any armed intervention in Syria.
And that brings us to the end of this segment of the news. Up next is Talking Point. Thank you once again, viewers, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We are going to be talking about the upcoming municipal and legislative elections billed for the 30th of September 2013. Our guest tonight is a political analyst and also the founder of the Movement for the National Fraternity. Good evening to you, Mr. Patrick Zabak, and thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talking Point.
Good evening, Mimi, and thanks to have given me that invitation.
Like I earlier indicated, we are going to be talking about the upcoming twin elections in Cameroon. So far, the administrative bench of the Supreme Court of sitting in for the Constitutional Council went through the nomination or the various petitions that were filed in by grumbling politicians after their list of nomination papers were rejected by Elections Cameroon, and they ordered or instructed Elections Cameroon to re-examine some of the files that were not examined and those that were equally rejected. There were about 30 of them, and yesterday the Election Board members were meeting in Yaoundé to see what to do as far as the re-examination exercise is concerned. Now, party officials, especially those of the opposition, are worried that an official list has not yet been published, and we are about 25 days to the elections. What's your reaction to that?
It has to be said very quickly that according to the Cameroonian law, the control of the files in any elections has to be done through two well-defined channels. First, The first control is done at the level of the Electoral Council in the form, and the second stage of control is done by the constitutional, how do you call it?
The Constitutional Council.
The Constitutional Council in the front. Now, to see the Constitutional Council asking ELECAM to re-examine, it is an outlaw operation. You know, once all the files that were rejected by ELECAM were examined in the front by the Constitutional Council, we should have directly the result issued by that Constitutional Court and ELECAM to, you know, publish those lists.
Are you saying that re-examining means that there is the possibility for ELECAM rejecting some of the files again?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm saying clearly that there are two means, two well-defined channels. The first one is done by ELECAM in the form to check the regularity of those files in the form, and then send them to the Constitutional Council to check them in the form whether they are regular or not. And once they decide that they are regular, then they send them back to ELECAM that must directly publish them and make everybody know about the list. And today we are waiting for ELECAM to sit again in meetings and what you want to re-examine and decide who is going to be part of that elections. You know, it is, as I said a while ago, an outlaw operation. But what has to be known, what has to be asked in our country is to know whether Cameroon is a democratic regime or a dictatorship regime. That is the crucial question that we must ask ourselves. And you know, is Cameroon a democratic regime? I say no. But is Cameroon a dictatorship regime? I say yes. Because all the characteristics of what is being done by those who are in the decision-making spheres in our country shows clearly that Cameroon cannot be called a democratic country.
So should the elections management body reject again some of the files after re-examination? That will be another process. The various politicians will have to refile another petitions to the Supreme Court. Is that going to be the case? And let's look at the time now, between now till the elections take place, that is in less than 25 days. Very soon, all campaigns would start all over the national territory. Would it not have an impact on the unfolding or the smooth unfolding of the election exercise?
There will surely be an impact. You know, they are doing that purposely. You know, they want all those political parties of the opposition not to be ready. To prepare themselves clearly and you know, without any other idea to those elections. And I said, every country in the world that claims itself like a democratic country does it because democracy is surrounded of some values: state of rights, respect of the law, alternations on power, and separation of powers, equality. You know, you have to listen to others. Now, those are the characteristics of a democratic regime. Now, you cannot talk of elections when the final validations of candidatures and the final proclamations of electoral elections are done by a Supreme Court whose magistrates are appointed, dismissed, and upgraded or changed by the president of the Constitutional Council, who is Paul Biya, and who is above all the president of a party which is in competition. You understand? You cannot talk of election. You cannot talk of election when you have an electoral council that has all the objective characteristics of a CPDM section. You cannot talk of elections when the unique electoral code, which must be a compass to guide the credibility, the transparency, or the freedom of all electoral process in one country, and that must benefit from the legitimacy of all the stakeholders of the political scene in the country, is imposed to Cameroonian unilaterally. You understand? And there are so many elements to show that Cameroon is not a democratic regime. It is simply a dictatorship regime.
So the country's judiciary is not in any way fair because it is not independent, according to you?
It is not an election. I'm saying clearly that what is going to happen is not an election. It is a political and democratic banditism, you know, because when you talk of elections, that means you make all the stakeholders sit on the table to discuss about all the means, all the rules that will, you know, guide that operation.
Let's come back now to the issue of the publication of lists. You earlier indicated that it would permit the various political parties that are vying for posts in the upcoming twin elections in the country to map out their campaign strategies and see what to do where and when, where they are supposed to take part in the campaign. Let's look at the importance of the timely publication of the list.
The timely publication of the list is a very crucial thing for, you know, a political party which has serious and sincere ambitions, you know, to end up in decision-making spheres in the country. But one of the elements that make up Cameroon as a dictatorship regime is the calendar, the electoral calendar, which is confiscated by one man. You understand? Because these forces all the political parties of the opposition not to be prepared well, because an election has to be prepared in the time-based, very clearly issued. But since we don't have the possibility to draw up a strategy according to the time that must be known previously, we are obliged to follow that election, which is not an election. We are going to play.
What do you mean by it's not an election?
It is not an election. I said it a while ago. That an election has a definition. The election is clearly an operation where you must transform the social stakes into political stakes. You understand? And for that, you have to listen first to the requirements of the population that must benefits from your actions on the field. Now, you cannot do it when you don't have any calendar, any political calendar with you. You cannot do it when they are bringing you all over in the courts for this or for that. We have today, we must be ready when the Supreme Court standing as the Constitutional Council. This is another way of, killing the law in our country, because the Constitutional Council, as it is stated in our Constitution, does not look like the Supreme Court that we have today.
They were supposed to be created in order to enhance democracy. That is what some party officials equally are saying. We thank you so much, Mr. Patrick Sapak, for joining us tonight on Talking Point, and we hope to have you some other time again.
You're welcome.
We should be thanking our viewers as well for having joined us in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Good evening to you once again.